Hello, welcome back. As you can see, I've got loads of little bits done, nothing major, just bits basically. It's all been a little bit fiddly, that's why. What I've done is I've done a lot of back and toing on this, and what I want to do really is I want to paint everything before I assemble it, so that I can get everything. It's a lot easier to paint stuff then. So basically we're starting at section 7, section 8, and this part is a subsection, if you like, here, and that's gone onto the tractor chassis there. That's a subsection. Section 7 and 8 are air cleaner, air filter, a hydraulic tank and a jerry can, randomly placed. So there's nothing really difficult about that at all. It's simply a simple assembly, and that of course will sit on the side of the chassis like so. From there we've got, go to section 9, which is assembling the engine really, and the engine, quite disappointing really. There's very little detail on it. It's got a blower, a turbo on the top, it's got the exhaust manifolds coming out to meet the turbo, the exhaust turbo, which is here, and will fit in between, whoops, he gets it the right way up, and will fit on there like so, and then run out to the outside. But surprisingly little detail on the engine itself. It's a Detroit diesel, I'm fairly sure of that. It's only got 6 caps on the top there, but the exhaust manifold has 8. So I'm guessing it's a V8. Detroit did do a V6 as well. So I'm guessing it's a V8 and it's a V71. I think I may have mentioned on the last video I did, I used to drive a truck with a V8 Detroit diesel in it in Australia, and a very nice engine it is as well. Extremely noisy. They call them Detroit screamers, but that's for another day. That's so what I'm going to do when that's painted, I'm going to paint it. It's a teal type colour, and a greeny blue, bluey green, whichever you want to call it. And most of the Detroit diesels were that colour, so that's the colour that's going to be. I then moved on to all these bits that had already been put on the chassis, the air tanks and the toolboxes. Then moving on to the offside mudguard, as we would call it in the UK, near side in America, or anywhere where they have left-hand drive. Simple enough assembly, and put together, that's what you get. A little bit of PE on there, a little bit of bending it around, but other than that, really quite simple. No drama with it at all. That's the spare wheel carrier. For obvious reasons, I've not put that on yet. If I put it on now, then I'll paint the tyre as well as the mudguard. So that's the mudguard. They must be, in real life, these mudguards must be very substantial to carry all the equipment on them. They're not standard bits of tin mudguards. The 2 rear mud flaps I've not put on yet because they would get in the way of the painting, and they basically go, where's my mark, where's my pointer? They basically go in there. There's a little square hole there for them, and they go down here. Oddly, there are no rear mud flaps on this. It would never be allowed on a British road because of no mud flaps on the rear, and there's no guard over the top of the wheels either. And again, you wouldn't get a usage certificate for it in this country, in the UK. But there you go. It is a military vehicle. The front, this goes onto the front here, and basically all I've done with it is, oh hang on, I'll find it on here, there's an idea. So I've assembled, I'll catch up myself in a minute, I've assembled all the cab. Looks quite complex, but in reality there's not really a lot to it, it's fairly simple. I have, although saying that, I have made it quite difficult for myself. So all the bits have gone on. I've not put the steering wheel on yet because I'd only break it off, and I'll put that on as time goes on. All the little bits have gone on, the dashboard, it's got to be painted. I'll paint it all desert tan, then I'll put the decals on it, and then I'll detail it all up so it looks right. What I've also done, you may notice all the wires sticking out of it. I've put a cab light in it. That's where the cab light goes. There is actually a cab light on the detailing, so I'll put a cab light on there. Then on the front you've got 2 side lights and 2 headlights, so they've both gone in as LEDs, and those wires will come underneath. Let's see, the interior light will come underneath. There'll be a distribution board which I've cut and marked, as you can see, underneath. The power for this will come from the trailer. I'll show you in a minute or two how I'm going to do that. But the power will come along here and then loop over to those 2 live rails there. Then the resistors will loop across to these live rails down here and power everything that's on there. I might get away with powering a couple from that rail as well. So that's all got to be soldered together and sorted out before I paint it. The inside of the cab, again, you can see a load of wires coming off it. There's nothing to do on the inside of the cab according to the instructions. As anybody that's seen these videos of mine before, you know that I don't put any of the glass in until the end. But there's basically, apart from the glass, there's nothing to go onto the inside of the cab. So what I was left with is detailing the lighting on it. Now I saw a guy, he's an Irish guy, and I cannot for the life of me remember his name. I'll try and dig it out again. But he managed to put the marker lights on here, but he didn't actually say how he'd done it. So I've done it my own way really. And what I've done is I've drilled right through the marker lights that are on there. Now this kit doesn't come with glass lenses for the marker lights. It's just a moulded shape on the top there. So I've drilled them right through. Then on the inside I've fixed the LEDs, one for each marker light, and all those wires come out the back. What I'm going to do then is, one of the kits I had at one point, I'll just put the hand behind that, had an extra set of marker lights. I've got absolutely no idea why, and what I've done is I've filed off a little bit of the top of those marker lights, and they fit pretty much perfectly into that groove. So when I've got it all up, they'll be painted. When it's all painted, I'll paint those amber, stick them over the top of those holes, and they will light up as they're supposed to. Another thing I've done, I've tried for a long time with this to work out how to get a flashing beacon on the roof, and hey, there it is, and that will fit on there. Now I looked all over YouTube and all over the internet to find ways of wiring one in, and then by sheer fluke I came across these 3mm LED. It's white and it flashes. What more could you ask for? And it does exactly what it says on the packet. When you wire it in, it flashes twice a second. What more could you ask for? It's perfect for it. So that will be glued in and wired on, and all the wires will then come down the back of the cab here and go underneath to where the distribution board goes. And I can get away with that because this cavity here is the air intake for the engine. There's no glass or anything in there, and that sucks the air in there, and the radiator sits about here. So all those wires can disappear down there and pretty much never seen again. I'm quite happy with that. So that's the flashing beacon for the roof, and all the wiring for the headlights, marker lights and interior lights. What else we've done? From there I put the seats together, I put the seat frames together. Every time I've done these, I put the whole thing together, put the seat on top of the frame, and then I had the devil's own job to get the paint on the inside of it. So this time what I've decided to do is simply assemble the frames, paint them, and then put the seats on them before it all goes together. So that's the seats and the whole of the interior of the cab. As I say, it looks complex, but there's not a lot in it really. Then there's a little bit more on the assembling the cab. The doors, there's no assembly on it at all except for putting the glass in them, and as I mentioned, I'm not going to put that in until it's all painted. That way I don't need to mess around with masks or masking stuff out and pop it all together. This piece here, C29 and GP3, is the beacon, and you might be able to see it, you might not be able to see it on here, but when I put that and you can just see it sticking out the top there. Okay, and when that's glued in and then the beacon painted amber and placed on the top, and when it's turned on, that'll look fantastic. I think it will anyway. The best laid plans of men and mice, eh? So that's all of that, and again really not very much to it. Then there's the base of the cab. I'll do that. There's only a couple of steps to put on, glue the steps onto it. Windscreen wipers will go on last, otherwise they'll get painted the wrong colour. The engine cowling, really very easy to put together, nothing to it. As simple as that. As the radiator, everything folds around the radiator and glues onto it. What I intend to do is have that engine cowling so it will lift off the chassis. And it sits back here somewhere. So it's behind the cab. The engine sits in there, and can't see that, can you? And it sits behind the cab. So I'm going to try and organise that so it can lift off and you can see where the engine lives. On that engine cowling, when it eventually goes on, there are 4 clips that are supposed to hold it down in real life, and I'm going to cut those in half and put them together. I'll show you in a minute or two. The exhaust pipe, really quite simple, nothing to it. Bending the PE for the exhaust pipe, I bent it round the handle of a craft knife, and that's, it's fairly easy. There's not much to that at all. Yeah, that bit there at the end is extremely delicate. In fact, that piece is broken off already, but that's what glue's for, isn't it? Then moving on, I've already mentioned the left-hand mudguard and the parts that go onto it. Moving on further, these are the 2 pieces that I mean here, and what they do is they would clip it down onto the mudguard there, and all I'm going to do is cut the end off from there so that whole thing can be lifted off. The mudguards, as I mentioned, they only go on the front of the wheel, and they will cock up the painting if I put them on first. Fuel tank's already been done. And where are we going then? Again, the same things, the clips that hold the engine cover down. The little box there has been put on, or the PE on the back there, simple 2 bends and then plunked on top. The skis on here, they bend at a 45-degree angle on there. You can just see the light catching them the way they've bent over. So that's a little bit difficult, but nothing I'm sure you guys can't do. Piece of PE there on the mudguard that's got quite a lot of bends in it. Then it's onto the winch, which is on section 19, and they've supplied a little bit of cotton so that you can put a cable on it. This is picture wire, 1mm picture wire. You can get it from any hardware shop really, and it's used for hanging pictures, as simple as that. It's a brass wire, and it looks very much like, I don't know how, it looks very much like a steel cable because it's wound in exactly the same way. So wind it round. It's a little bit difficult to wind it round. I put a couple of turns on and a little bit of super glue, a couple more turns, a little bit of super glue, and then come out here and put the hook on the end that they've supplied. What I'm also going to do with that is, from the hydraulic tank here, there's no pipes supplied with this and no plan as to where they go, but these two spigots here, 1 and 2, the hydraulics would come down onto the platform, across the platform, and then go into, I've got to research it a little bit more. I think one goes in this end and comes out that end, so I'll sort that out, but I'll put that in again after it's been painted. So that's the winch. The platform itself, again, I've not put it on because if I put that on then you won't be able to paint the chassis properly. It will hide half the chassis and you'll get a load of shadowing on the paintwork, so that will be painted separately. But what I have done, before I fix this piece of PE down, I've painted, you might be able to see it, I don't think you can, I've painted the tops of those rails there desert tan so that it looks the same, and then when it's painted it'll all look nice. That, so that's that. It has a ladder that sticks on it. I'm going to paint the ladder aluminium because it would be an aluminium ladder. That's those. Pretty much done there now. And then it goes on to assembling it. As I said, the front of the cab, this piece, just has a piece of PE stuck on it. Oshkosh written on it, on the front of it there, piece of PE, cutouts for all the lights, for the headlights. Going round to the other side, and it's basically assembling it. There are no Susies with it, so I'm going to put the Susies on. I'm going to stick Susies onto it. I'll have to make them myself, obviously, and I'll manufacture the fifth wheel as I go along. Then it's onto the trailer, which I haven't started yet. But there is a plan for the trailer. I was going to put the batteries underneath the cab, but you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that that ain't going to fit. So what I've decided to do is leave a couple of cross members. Trailer chassis is made up, as it would be in real life, of a lot of cross members. Loads of steel girders going across. I'm going to miss two of those out, and hey presto, that fits in there perfectly. Distribution board at the side of it, battery clip on there, then run the wires through the rest of the girders, out through the front of the trailer, up the swan net, out through the front of the trailer, and then when it gets to here on the fifth wheel, they can duck down, duck in underneath here and run along the chassis to the front, where they'll go onto the distribution board and supply the power at the front. And that is about what I'm up to. So I've got some wiring to do to tidy up. Then I'm going to paint all of this except the trailer. All of this will be painted, so the next time you see it, it'll all be assembled, hopefully the way that I've said, and then it'll be a case of starting on the trailer. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave them in the boxes below, and it'd be great if you could like and subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time. Ta-da!